truly, and this is not just because we all live here, Yamhill County has beaten a lot of the benchmarks in every single area. Yeah, we've got some economic challenges, but we've got a quality of life that nobody can equal, and we have everything we need to move towards an economic superiority, if you will, because of our agriculture, because of manufacturing, because of everything else that's going on here. And we have more than 70% of the counties in this state are growing, and certainly our county is growing as well. Health and Human Services is one area of responsibility for me. It's something I'm passionate about, and I have been my whole life involved in health, wellness, medical issues, and so I'm happy to serve. Health and Human Services is such a complicated area and such a complicated department. It's perhaps the most complicated. You've got so many different moving parts. You have over 250 employees. You have a $31 million budget, but only $1.6 million of that comes from county funds. It's also one of the things you can sit around and talk about the next time you're at a wine tasting, that only 17% of the money that you, in your property tax check, only 17% of that goes to the county. And again, when you've got so much of that that's got to be spread around, 17% of that to go to fund all these different departments. So Health and Human Services, what does it do? Well, let me just give you an idea. We have, what it does is it's a sort of an umbrella organization that deals with public health, restaurant inspections, immunizations, water quality types of issues. The other thing is the Yamhill County CCO. There are CCOs, or coordinated care organizations, that are the umbrella for the Medicaid patients or the Oregon Health Plan patients. You've got partners that work together. You have dental partners, you have Providence, you've got physicians, medical company. It serves the Oregon Health Plan members, and it's comprised of this network of healthcare providers, and they all work together to serve the Medicare OHP, Oregon Health Plan members. It works closely with, for instance, Willamette Valley Medical Center, Providence Newburgh Medical Center right here, HHS, the Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center, Lutheran Community Services, variety of different dental organizations, physicians, and health providers. The other thing that Health and Human Services does with the $1.6 million of your money and the $31 million from state and federal money is it helps with mental health issues. We've got a contract where we work with George Fox University graduate students, and they have a wonderful program put in place where we deal with crisis psychiatric issues with people from George Fox University who are doing a wonderful job. I think that really does set this health department apart from others in that we work with partners in our community. The Health and Human Services deals with mental health treatment, alcohol treatment, and gambling. It's something I found out, and I've visited at every single one of these programs. There are a number of residential treatment, transitional treatment houses, and you name it. Our Health and Human Services people are so dedicated. Silas Halloran Steiner was actually considered for working with the Oregon Health Authority, actually taking over where Lynn Saxton is now. And he sent me the email when he knew that it came out in an article. He says, I have to tell you, I'm not interested. I said, good, because you can't go. He truly is so invested in people. I've seen this man sit there describing things and get tears in his eyes. That's not a normal government worker. This is a guy who truly cares about every single one of the clients, the most vulnerable people we serve here in this county. But the question is, we've got some problems. First of all, many of you know that the Affordable Care Act has not been very affordable for municipalities and for counties. In our particular case, Obamacare and that Medicaid expansion, which what it did was it took all the Oregon Health Plan people who didn't have private insurance, and it put them under the umbrella of the Affordable Care Act with this expansion. And we had a 9,000 person increase as a result of that. So it increased to 26,000 people that we are now caring for under the umbrella of the Yamhill County CCO. And so again, we've got a lot of people to serve, and we're expecting to have more. It's leveled off a little bit, but it really is something for us to look at as far as what the county is needing to do. But the county does something wonderful in that it partners with community organizations like Provoking Hope, which is a group of people, recovering women and men, in recovering from all variety of addictions, and they help them to live. It's a faith-based organization that the county partners with, actually gives them money to carry out this program so that they can live sober, get their kids back, and wind up being contributing members of the community. I've gone to some of the recovery court that we work with, the courts with, recovery court graduations, where you have women who've had their kids taken away, they've been in prison and in jail numerous times, and you watch them go through this really strict program for 2 years, and they're clean, they're sober, their kids are back, and they're graduating, and it'll give you chills to see these women. It's something, if you want to do it every once in a while on a Monday, you might want to go and watch a graduation. It will certainly make you grateful for the programs that HHS is working on. But again, HHS does the public health, the immunizations, and emergency preparedness, which I'll talk to you about in a second. I'm trying to talk really fast because I know Stan has things he wants to say. The Northwest Senior and Disability Services is also an area. It's an intergovernmental group that serves people with seniors and people with disabilities in Yamhill, Polk, Marion counties. And that is the go-to organization if you've got older people or people with disabilities. Talk about caring. I mean, these people will track somebody down who looks like they have a need and bring whatever services they need. It's one of those things where you can actually see government working with private partners, that it's actually seeking people who have needs and working with them. I want to go on to the clerk's office really quick. A couple of things about what the clerk's office does. It's got 4 main functions. It's elections, and it's got registration for voters, recording public records, licenses, passports, and believe it or not, which I found kind of interesting, which is the Board of Property Tax Appeals, or one of the government acronyms I've had to learn is called BOPTA, and they actually deal with that at the clerk's office. And we've got a challenge this year because, as you know, the presidential primary is about a year away, and the Oregon Secretary of State, who is now the governor, reintroduced her voter registration bill, and that passed the legislature, and that's called Motor Voter. That's where everybody who interfaces with Department of Motor Vehicles is automatically signed up to be a voter. You would actually have to physically opt out of the program. Well, this has brought a lot of challenges to our clerk's office, and that means we've got another 7,600 voters, 14% more, another 1,600 next year. That's an additional 27%, and that means we're going to have to come up with $23,000, and we don't have that money, and that's this year alone. Our voting equipment is near the end of its life. We need to purchase some very expensive voter equipment, so we're planning now by taking some money from one department and putting it in another so that we'll be able to do that. The problem with this voter registration thing, which this Motor Voter, is that it's about $1.50 for every new voter that we actually have to now add to the rolls. And the clerk's office used to be so flush with money that they would take money from their department and give it to other departments. Well, now they're broke, and now they can't do that, and now they've got this unfunded mandate from the state, and they've got voting equipment which is about to fall apart. So we really are, kind of trying to patch together something, and we do have a solution. One of the things that our clerk, Brian Van Bergen, I'm very proud of him, he initiated, like he doesn't have enough to do. What he started was something called the Veterans Recognition Program. You might see these signs in businesses in Newburgh, and he got that up and going, and we've got some applications if you would like to register. What it is we've got our veterans will register their discharge papers with the county, their DD-214s, and then be able to get all kinds of discounts. So we've got our merchants involved, and we've got our veterans involved, and Stan, who was one of the first veterans to sign up, will tell you a little bit more about that. I'm going to have some of these that I will leave out there for you. So anyway, at this point we have 167 veterans signed up and 14 businesses, and we're working on making that bigger all the time. Emergency management is another area I've been involved in, and that's my liaison as emergency medical technician many, many years ago. That's always been an area of interest for me. We've got an outreach specialist who's actually doing presentations now. She's going to be doing one at the Newburgh Library at 11 o'clock on May 30th. The topic is how to be prepared on a small budget. She's available to speak to groups. If you want to get a hold of me, I can set that up. We have emergency preparedness group meetings and gatherings of public and private agencies to get the word out that we need to get prepared. We just had something from the Oregon Emergency Management Department. It was called Calamity in the Valley. It was a full-scale exercise in March. A lot of you may have been involved in that, where we actually pull out all the stops and say, what do we do if something happens really bad? And so we prepare by doing a full-scale exercise. We do an improvement plan. We've got a plan for just about everything, and we're constantly improving that. What I wanted to say is I've got these in a box by the door, so please grab one. What this is a bag with some information in here. And what the suggestion is that you put your shoes in here, and you put a flashlight, put it under your bed, because in the middle of the night, if there's a fire, if there's broken glass, if you've got to, hit the bricks, you might not have time to go find your shoes. So whatever else you want to use this for, we've got them by the door, so grab one of these and take it with you. We also have CERT Community Emergency Response Team classes. One of them is wrapping up. Recently, the City of Newburgh, you might know this, has passed its emergency operations plan to reflect new policies and procedures. Newburgh recently participated in an update of this hazard plan. So there's a lot going on in that area. Sue Lamb does a wonderful job and is always looking behind her shoulder for the next disaster we should be preparing for. The Housing Authority of Yamhill County is something I'm involved with. We've got a lot of rentals or managed rentals. There are waiting lists for 584 of the Housing Authority properties. They're continuing to work on foreclosure issues, trying to do a foreclosure avoidance program. They have 56 active cases, which means 56 people have stayed in their homes as a result of the Housing Authority, what they've done, and they're in process with 109 other people. Also involved with Association of Oregon Counties, which is the lobbying group for the counties. I work on water resources and have put together a confab where we're going to be talking about regional water issues. Involved with public lands and natural resources and the legislative committee. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about, I want to end this on a high note, so to speak, and talk about marijuana. Believe it or not, we're halfway through the legislative session, and the joint, and this is, I'm not making this up, it's called the Joint Marijuana Committee. And they have not moved one single bill. So the House Senate Majority Leader, Peter Courtney, is saying, we're going to shut this thing down. You're not coming up with anything. They're still working on the medical marijuana omnibus bill, when now we have Measure 91, which has come along, and they haven't even started on that. So the questions are, do we allow, because what Measure 91 says is, if you want to opt out, it's got to go to the voters. So in other words, the county commissioners or the whatever, that's the jurisdiction that can't say, okay, we're not going to do it. It's got to go to the voters, and it's got to be a year after the thing takes effect. So now they're trying to tweak that to say it doesn't have to go to the voters. The county commissioners can go ahead and say we're not going to have any marijuana facilities, medical or recreational, in our jurisdictions. So this is one of those things they're calling a Frankenstein bill. Actually, yesterday the Legislative Council for Association of Oregon Counties said, we don't even know what this is. This is just this monster, and nobody can figure out what in the world to do with it. So if someone asks you a question about what's going on with the medical marijuana and Measure 91, just say you don't know, because this literally changes every hour. It's one of those things, because now we have to ask ourselves, if you're going to grow marijuana, do you get that $80,000 exemption that people have to hang on to? You know, if you want to do farming, you have to make $80,000 in order to build a house on your farming property. So now is marijuana going to be one of those things? Because all you need is 8 plants, and you've got 80 grand, believe it or not. I found this out yesterday. 8 plants, you've got an $80,000 crop, now you can build a house, and then do you move on, and have you used up farmland? So it's a land use thing, it's a legal thing, it's a near schools thing. It's one of those things that, as they said, it truly is a Frankenstein. But we're working on that, and I think it's important for us to be involved at the lead. We've been in Salem an awful lot this year, because what happens at the state level is truly going to affect us here in the county. We can push back as much as we want, but at the end of the day, if they pass some bad legislation down there, we all have to live with it. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and Commissioner Primozic, I'm sure, has much to share. Thank you.
Well, are you out of breath like I am after listening to that? No, Mary's fantastic. If anybody gets into the depth of what she's working on, Mary does. So we're all very blessed to have her on the commission. You know, it was once said in entertainment that you always leave them laughing. I guess that's why they left me for last, because being as new as I am, I'm still trying to figure out what the state of the county is. So, there are so many amazing things happening. One of the things I will piggyback on what Mary just said is the recognition program for our veterans. Veterans Affairs is one of the areas of responsibility for me, and being a Vietnam veteran, I really am excited about anything we can do for veterans. So as you travel around Yamhill County, you'll see businesses with this sign in their windows, and that means that they recognize the cards that our county clerk is now issuing. When you go in, you take your DD 214 in, and it's registered with the county clerk, and they take your photo and laminate you a card here, and this tells the merchants that you are truly a certified, honorably discharged veteran, and then they have a variety of different discounts around the county. So it's a really special project. Our county clerk went to a county clerk's meeting, and Klamath County had started this, but they have just a really, really innocuous program, and Brian came back and said, hey, we can do this. And so it's not under his umbrella of things to do, but he did it, and it's a great program. And so if any of you are business owners out here, as Mary said, she has applications, so do I. So be more than happy to explain the program and get you signed up so you can participate with us. Like I say, Veterans Affairs is one of the areas that I'm responsible for. I was in a meeting yesterday in Salem. I'm on the steering committee for veterans, for the Veterans Affairs. One of the problems we have here is getting our veterans who are participating in health services from the VA hospital. They'll call to get an appointment, and a lot of them are elderly or they're handicapped in some way, and so they have to depend on somebody to get them to their appointments. Now, VA does have a van that comes down and picks our people up in Yamhill County. The van gets down here about 10 o'clock in the morning. The Veterans Administration has made an appointment for our veterans for 7:30 a.m. So now we've got a problem. So that's one of the areas I've been working on, getting them to do some scheduling that takes into consideration this. And I also am working with the VA hospital. They do have a clinician's van where they send a clinician out to Lincoln County to do things on site, and I'm trying to get them to bring that to Yamhill County. So hopefully we can get that done here in the not too distant future. Another area of responsibility I have is public works, and so you guys have all spent time in that area. You drove here today. It's amazing. We have nearly 800 miles of county road. We have bridges, we have culverts, lots of ditches, and a lot of potholes. And I know every one of you would love to see us fill your potholes. And believe me, we would love to do it, but we also have a limited resource. We do schedule. One of the most active and best committees that I serve on is the Road Improvement Advisory Committee. They do a tremendous job, and they're very, very dedicated and focused on our county roads. The REACT Committee advises our Public Works Director. They have a list of criteria to determine what section of road is going to get paved, what section is going to get graded, what sections we're going to do an overlay on. And we also have a program called the CHIP program, where we have individuals who are willing to pave their own road and then dedicate it to the county if, in fact, we would work with them and help them get the thing ready for paving. So that CHIP program, we have 2 roads that are going in this year on the CHIP program. Be nearly 2 miles of road that will be paved at the expense of the individuals. So we try everything we can to work with people to make sure that we have as good a road as we can get. Just had a young lady approach me a few minutes ago because her road is getting paved this this summer, and that's Albertson Road out here in this part of the county. I didn't even know Albertson Road existed until I all of a sudden had this position, and John said, well, Stan, now you have to go out and help me determine which roads we're going to pave. And so he drove me up, and boy, we have one of the most beautiful counties you've ever seen. I encourage every one of you to get out, and you know, I've lived in McMinnville for 32 years, and I thought I had seen a lot of this county, but believe me, we do have one tremendous county and some very, very dedicated people trying to take good care of it for you. So get out, drive around, and see what's here. We have a tremendous parks department. If you've been out to Rogers Landing lately, you've seen all the work that was done out there with the new docks, the parking lots all cleaned, all restriped. You've got your regalia coming up here this summer, and it's going to be a showcase for you out here. Our Parks Department is working really hard to make sure that our county park system truly represents the kind of people that live here. We are doing some name changes on our parks to better acquaint people with what the purpose of the park is. We have, for instance, Lafayette Locks. That's a historical park. People don't really appreciate the history behind those locks there and how that was developed. So it's not going to be just Lafayette Locks Park. It's going to be Lafayette Locks Historical Park. So the designation historical will help people understand the purpose of the park there. Stuart Grenfell going over to the coast. I don't know, a lot of you might have realized that wayside there is, it's an actual county park. It is a rest area, but it's Stuart Grenfell, and it's now going to be designated a wayside park. Out in the Sheridan area, we have Deer Park, which is actually a natural reserve. It's a nature park, and we're going to designate it as that. So the other issue that the parks are working with right now is the rails to trails. A lot of you have heard that expression. We've got 17 miles out of McMinnville to Gaston, or north of Gaston, and that will fall under the Parks Department as we move forward with that. But I know in the Newberry area, you guys have miles and miles of trail. I was just amazed when I went to the trail summit we had here a few months ago. 3 months ago? I've only been around 5.5 months, so I say it like it was ancient history, but you guys have a tremendous trail system around here, and which I didn't realize, Mike may be aware of, and so it's, if we can start getting some connectivity of these trails over to Dundee and further, people could bike, walk, ride horses all around this county without ever having to get on our roads. And so, you know, multimodal transportation is really a big issue nationwide, and we're really trying to promote that in this community. So Rails to Trails comes under parks also. I also have the assessing and taxation office under me. So we are working really hard on some acquiring a new software system. Commissioner Springer used the term life support in making reference to our housing. Well, our software in the assessor's office is way beyond needing life support, and it was an in-house developed system that has long ago lost its steam. So we've contracted with a company to upgrade this, so it's going to be about a 9-month process, but we're really anxious to get going and make sure that we get our rolls up to date and that all of our information is safe. So that's a project that is ongoing and taking quite a bit of time. As Mary indicated, she's working at AOC as I am. I'm, as I mentioned, on the Veterans Affairs. I'm also on the Community and Economic Development Subcommittee, or Steering Committee there. The last few meetings, we meet once a month, have pretty much been dedicated to following all of the various bills that are currently in the House and Senate at the state level, plus the ones that are at the national level. Yeah, it's unfortunate we allowed legislators to go over there every 2 years, and they did enough damage, but now we let them go every year, so you can imagine how much we've increased the amount of damage they can do. We do live with a lot of bad legislation. It's not intended to be bad. I mean, every one of these bills is written because somebody really sees that as a need or necessary component to our lives, and yet there are so many unintended consequences to some of these bills. And so I really call on all of you to be aware, to look at what's happening in your legislature. Contact your representatives, contact your senators, because these bills are going to have a serious impact on you. I've been on the school board in McMinnville for 23 years, and I'm on the Oregon School Board Association Board of Directors. And you know, like I was saying to my board members last night, we have a lot of these, well, just like an enterprise zone. I mean, it sounds great, it's going to help develop jobs, but enterprise zones reduce your property tax income, and property tax is what supports counties, our county government, that's one of our biggest resources. Schools are impacted tremendously by property tax. So we have to start looking at these things. It's, you know, somebody with a bill comes out and says, boy, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and everybody jumps on board until they start looking at, well, wait a minute, this isn't all that good. So I really encourage all of you to be aware and to get involved and not let these things just happen to you. I mean, we've got a lot of great things going on in the county, a lot of them because we're making them happen, and a lot of them we're trying to catch up with what's happening. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I am going to promise you that next year I will know a lot more than I know this year, and I will be doing my best to serve you and to really justify the trust you had in putting me here. So thank you very much for the luncheon and this opportunity to say hi.
I want to say a big thank you to Chair Springer and Commissioners Starrett and Primozic. Hope I said that right. Still working on that one. I also want to thank you all for joining us today. And I want you to know we're going to be hosting the State of the City address next month, led by City Manager Jackie Betts and Mayor Bob Andrews. Luncheon will be held in the same location and at the same time on Tuesday, June 23rd, and we hope you can all be here to join us. Thank you all so much for coming.